Hi, John Hand with the Pulsing Cinema, and the movie of the day is another cheat because it's a television special, television movie, a television documentary on the life and work of Dar Robinson, the world's greatest stuntman. I think it's also known by another bunch of titles. I think the U.S. television title was something like the world's greatest stuntman. I think it was released on VHS under that title. And I think in Europe it was released as Stunt Wars or Stunt Wars 2 or something like that. Television special on the life and work of stuntman Dar Robinson, who specialized in high falls. He was just a guy since he was a kid wanted to be a stuntman. His father ran a gymnastics supply company, and he kind of started the trampoline craze apparently. And Dar was just a natural as far as on the trampoline. He had this ability to know where his body was positioned, even when he was in a flip and he was like upside down. So he could do these trampoline stuff very easily. He could jump off buildings and know where he was at when he was like upside down. He'd be able to hit like the middle of the mat or the bag or the airbag or however he was an innovator, and he developed multiple different ways of doing high falls. And this documentary, which is narrated by Chuck Norris, it really affected me when I was a little kid and I watched it on television. It played on network television a couple of times. It felt like to me like it was some kind of December special at one point, and then I think it played kind of yearly for a little while, and then I think it played on like A&E or Discovery or some channel. It played once or twice, and then it just like disappeared for years, and I was like, man, that was like one of my things I was yearning after, to get that show again, and then I realized that it had come out on VHS. I think Good Times or somebody had Republic. Somebody released it on VHS, but that VHS was so damn rare, and it was like so rare. The Stunt Wars was not as rare, but it was a PAL tape, but eventually, a couple of years ago, it did come out. Somebody did put it on YouTube. So the full show. For years, they only had clips on YouTube, clips of his jumps on Sharky's Machine and the CN Tower and things like that. But now the full show is on YouTube, and I think a couple of people have it up, and I think it's the Stunt Wars version. But I've watched it, and it looks to be complete. I mean, nothing that I remember is missing from the show. So basically, the show is just narrated by Chuck Norris, and it's just kind of a greatest hits of all of his best stunts. Stuntmen usually are kind of in the shadows. Sometimes they're doubles, sometimes they're athletes, sometimes they're human punching bags. But they usually don't become very well known and famous. Even the really heavy stuntmen with a lot of credibility in the business, like Yakima Canute and all of the famous stunt, they usually don't get documentaries, television documentaries narrated by Chuck Norris. But Dar Robinson was special in that he in the 70s on network television, American network television, and also world television, there was this wide world of sports. There were lots of documentaries, television shows on stunts and sports, and Battle of the Network Stars and all of this stuff. And Dar Robinson got into that. He started doing television specials where he'd do a stunt. There's the incredible crazy stunt where he drives a car off of a cliff and in free fall jumps out of the friggin' car with a parachute on, and parachutes down in the bottom of this ravine. I mean, it's incredible. I think it was the Grand Canyon, wasn't it? I don't know. I think Kathy Lee Crosby. These shows were like hosted by like Kathy Lee Crosby and 70s television hosts, and so they were like news programs, but kind of again that whole wide world of sports, documentary specials. It's incredible. All these forgotten television shows, which I don't even remember because they were before my time. But so we see his jump off the cliff, and then he had another jump. He jumped off of the CN Tower, which is in Ontario. It was the tallest freestanding tower for like 30 years. It was only topped in like 2010 when they built these gigantic towers in China and Dubai, which they just wanted to one up. But he jumped off of that frigging tower for a movie. He jumped off with a concealed parachute. He parachuted off this friggin' tower. He was base jumper. He was base jumping. It's incredible. He came back and did a television special where he jumped off the tower with no parachute. He jumped off the tower with this. He developed this way of doing jumps with a cable attached to his leg that would decelerate him, rapidly decelerate his fall. So he'd free fall, how many feet, and then the cable would, decelerate him so he could safely not splatter on the ground. It was an innovation because you could film a scene looking over the person that was about to fall, and there didn't have to be any kind of mat or airbag below him. He could just do a free fall, and it looked like the guy would be falling, but just before he would hit the ground, before he'd splatter, this cable system that was attached to his leg would just kind of would gently yank him and decelerate his speed. This was incredibly dangerous because if something fucked up, if the cable yanked too hard, it would yank his body apart. If there was some mechanical malfunction on this thing, if his weight had not been calculated properly given the counterbalance and all of this stuff, if something was off in the equation, he would just fall to the ground and splatter. And in fact, doing this television show, they had problems with the winds, and there was one take that they did just as a test with the water bag, where the water bag actually, there was a malfunction with the mechanisms, and it went on the ground and it splattered. I don't know if that was for dramatic effect, and I don't know if that was faked for dramatic effect in the show. It would not surprise me if it was, but also it would not surprise me if it did not, because definitely. So this guy, he's not. The documentary is very clear, and Dar Robinson himself is very clear in the footage, in the archival footage of the documentary. It's very obvious that he's not a crazy person. That every stunt that he does, there's a great deal of fear and respect that he has for the stunt, and he wants to calculate everything, and it's in the special. There's this part of the special where there's a gigantic high fall that he's instructing this woman to do. This woman stunt woman in training, and she falls out of this helicopter onto this airbag, and she's like slightly off, and he like chews her out. He's like, you gotta concentrate, you gotta focus, But Dar Robinson could. So as I said earlier, especially with high falls, he jumped out of the car. He fell out of the CN Tower. He fell out of that Atlanta Tower for Sharky's machine, doubling Henry Silva, wearing the mat. At the end of Sharky's machine, where that guy jumps through the glass of that gigantic tower in Atlanta and does a fall. He did that, and so he got a relationship with Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds, who was also an ex-stuntman, and worked on Burt Reynolds' Stick, where he actually played a character, Bunny Eyes. and he's in the film, and he has a little bit of dialogue, and then he did that fall with the cable, and that was the incredible thing with the fall, where you actually see him, fall in slow motion. He's going, it's incredible, where you just see the guy, and the camera angle's looking up, and it's just, you just see him fall. It's really, really incredible. And so it just goes on from there. He Lethal Weapon. He doubled, I believe, Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon. Did a fall, and at that in the early, when the Mel Gibson character handcuffs himself to the guy. It's like, you want to jump? Let's jump, and then he jumps. And his appearances on television, and Johnny Carson. There's all, this movie is a great retrospective, and then it's a great tribute to the guy, because the guy did die. He died as a result of an accident during a stunt in 1986 on the film $1 Million Mystery. It was a stunt. At the end of the day, they'd already the paramedics, the EMS had been sent away because the major stunt had been done, and he was just going to do this motorcycle stunt, And he specialized in motorcycle stunts early on. I think one of his first stunts was in Magnum Force, was in the Eastwood film. Oh, and by the way, as far as high falls, he also doubled Steve McQueen in Papillon. That was, again, one of his first big stunts, was Papillon. He fell at the end of Papillon. He did that. Man was a specialist in high falls. But on $1 Million Mystery, that Dino De Laurentiis 1986 film, which was like a rip-off of It's a Mad Man, Mad World, he was doing a motorcycle stunt, and he just skidded off a cliff and fell. It was a very simple stunt, but he just basically skidded his motorcycle and skidded off a cliff, and very sad. But this film is dedicated to him. I think the last 3 films he worked on, Lethal Weapon and $1 Million Mystery, and then Cyclone, which was a Fred Olen Ray film, which I just think came out on DVD. I watched it with Jeffrey Combs, and it's good. It's about a motorcycle, and I think he actually does some acting in that as well. I think he was diversifying in trying to get into acting, and stuff, because of his high profile with television things. And he was a good physical actor, and he can also do the stunts and do the high falls. It's just incredible. It's just an innate sense of rhythm and balance and stuff. But again, great show. I don't think you need to track down the VHS. If you can check it out on YouTube. If you love Stuntmen, if you love action films and Stuntmen and stuff like this, Dar Robinson was one of the kings of Stuntmen, really. There were a lot of good Stuntmen documentaries in the late 80s and early 90s that I saw, because there was one, I think it was just a television show on Benny Dobbins, who was Stuntman in Rambo, and he worked with Schwarzenegger on a bunch of early Schwarzenegger films. He was a really good stunt coordinator, stuntman. I think he died on Red Heat. And then there was the other stuntman who was he was more of a daredevil. He liked, I always forget this dude's name. He liked he was like the human cannonball. Like a car would drag him, and then he'd unlatch from the car, and then he'd go head first into burning bales of hay or stuff, and then he started doing it with he broke away from the people he's working with, and he started doing a thing where he'd be hooked to the bottom of a helicopter or a plane, and then and then the plane would go down to land, and then unhook him, and then he would barrel through something like the human bullet or something. And there's a very sad video, of course, of the accident that he died as a result of an accident. The tiny latch that he had when he was flying tiny latch that was holding his body to the helicopter came loose, and there was a video of it. It's very very tragic. But they did a good documentary on his whole life. That was just a small part of the documentary. But that's a good Daredevil film. I don't think the whole special is on YouTube, but the ending is the end of his life. That horrible thing. But there's no footage like that in because that's more kind of like a face of death thing. But the Greatest American Stuntman, or the World's Greatest, I always mess up on this title of this film. But in any case, Dar Robinson, a really uplifting, good special about a film icon, legend in the stuntman world, narrated by Chuck Norris. Great film. Check it out.